Hey team, my name's Cole. I'm a furniture refinisher based in Christchurch, New Zealand. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you've been here before, you know the drill. Let's jump straight into it. I'd had my eye on this antique rider's slope for quite some time, for a couple of reasons. One, I knew it would be super challenging and likely teach me a thing or two. And two, I thought this was well suited as a birthday present for a very good friend of mine who is also my sister-in-law. She is an amazing poet, living her best life in Dublin, currently doing her PhD. So yeah, this one is for you, Charlotte. Fingers crossed I can bring this one back to life for you. It needs quite a bit of work done to it. There is a lot of damage to the veneer, plenty of blemishes. The brass shield on the front and the top are both missing. It doesn't have a key, but I plan on finding one. And the inside also needs a complete overhaul. So I'll do whatever I can to fix it up. That includes replacing veneer, replacing that velvet, which is going to be extremely challenging, polishing up these hinges. There is a lot of work in front of me, and at this moment I had absolutely no idea what I was in for. The first challenge I had to tackle was getting all of these screws out. Unfortunately, all except for two had zero tread left in the top, so I needed to try and find a tool to recreate that groove so as I could get a screwdriver in there to remove these. I wasn't having too much luck with these tools, so I did a bit of research to find out if there was another option, and I came across this little thing called the Easy Out. Basically what you do is take a drill and get a tiny little hole in the very center of the screw, and these screws were tiny, so it was quite a challenge. As you can see, I didn't do the best job, but it worked. And then you take the Easy Out with your hand, apply a bit of pressure, wedge it in there quite securely. I actually took a hammer in the end just to kind of make sure it was nice and snug. Then you apply the drill and turn it on. And with any luck, it will bring the screw out. In this case, fortunately it did. And what I actually realized was these weren't even screws. They were just like made to look like screws. It was a tiny nail. So I managed to use pliers to get out a few of them, and I used the Easy Out on around half of them. And it was useful to learn what that tool did, because I'm pretty sure I'll need it again in the future. I'd like to reuse as many of the original brass components as I can, so I'll give them a bit of a buff and shine. And I'm really eager to try and find a key to fit this lock. I don't believe that I'll be able to find the same lock to replace it altogether, but I'm pretty confident I'm going to find that key. I was quite hesitant to remove this velvet. I have absolutely no idea how I'm going to replace it. So I figured just take it off, and then you got no choice. I have to find a solution, so I just take it off. And I decided to remove this stuff off the bottom as well. It's some kind of material, but I'll likely just replace this with a piece of black felt. Obviously, I'm going to do anything to avoid tackling that velvet, so I'm going to move on to something else and repair some of this veneer damage. There are many techniques that I've seen for repairing veneer damage. This is just the one that I use. I think I've seen it on YouTube before several times. If you've got another way that you think's better, or just another way, feel free to share it in the comments. I'd love to know. Thank you. I was reluctant to take to this with an electric sander, so opted for the old elbow grease. May have regretted it later. Took a couple of hours, but got there in the end. This is what it looked like once it was fully sanded. Definitely time for a beer, and I will return to this job tomorrow. I'd spoken to a guy named Lindsay who works at this antique centre, and he mentioned that he had some keys at home and that he would bring them in for me. So I wandered on in, and we were trying these keys out in the lock, and he was explaining to me that he collects glass bottles, and about 25 years ago he was looking in the Avon River, which runs through Christchurch, for glass bottles, stumbled across a suitcase, and it was full of keys. So his scenario was that someone robbed a jeweller and threw the box of keys into the river. I thought that was a pretty cool story. Anyhow, we managed to find 2 keys. They didn't unlock the box, but there was a bit of movement, so I've taken them away with hopes that I can tinker with them and get them to work. So I'll give that a go a little later in the video. But for now, I'm just using some wood filler to fill in some gaps and hopefully neaten things up a little bit. Sadly, the original brass shields were nowhere to be found. So what I'm doing here is creating a sketch one-to-one, and hopefully I can get them recreated via a laser cutter. So I'll send this off and we will revisit it a little later in the video. I make a start on reapplying the velvet. The back sides have got some very severe damage to the veneer, which looks like mahogany. I don't think that I can just sort of repair this. I'm going to have to rip the whole lot off and replace it completely. So I'm just removing that now with a view to replace it a little bit later down the track. This is basically prepped, ready to go for the velvet, but the edge really needs to be stained. I don't want to be staining it once the velvet's on because that could get a bit messy, so I'll do that now. The wood actually comes up really nicely. I'm quite happy with how that's looking. So I'm going to hold my breath and hope for the best here. Basically, I cut a piece a little bit bigger than the shape that I need, apply some glue, let it get a little bit tacky, and then press on the velvet. I'm going to leave that to dry overnight, and I don't even know what I'm going to do next. I'll decide that when I come back tomorrow. But in the meantime, I'm going to stain the rest of the box. I'm also going to replace the veneer on the back of these as well, so that the glue can dry on both the velvet and the veneer overnight. So this isn't too hard of a process because it is one blanket piece of mahogany that I'm replacing. So I'll just measure it up and stick it on. These are the two keys that Lindsay helped me out with. Now, one of them did turn, but nothing was really happening with the lock. It wasn't quite locking it, it wasn't quite unlocking it. And this one here is the right shape, but it was a little bit too long, so I couldn't get it all the way in. So what I'm going to do is file slightly this larger one with hopes that it'll sort of come in between the two. So let's give that a go. It's gone in, it's moving, it's locked. Perfect. Now we need it to unlock. Winning. Now I'm really not a varnish fan at all, and I don't want this box to look shiny brand new. I want it to, retain some character. So what I do is I use this satin spray, spray it on and wipe it off really quickly. And I do this continuously until I get the look that I want. And it's generally not that sort of shiny, highly varnished look. It's more of a sort of, I don't know, glowing matte satin look. And the interior gets a good going over with beeswax. It's a new day and it's time to bite the bullet and get cutting with this velvet. So here we go. I'm just going to grab a knife and make the cut. The stuff is really stretchy, so I'm feeling like this is not going to work out as well as I hope, but I can only give it a go, hope for the best, and if it doesn't work, find something else. It's actually cut reasonably straight, but there is a bit of glue residue left on the wood there, so I just use some white vinegar to get rid of that, and it takes it away quite well. Before I finish up with this side, I'm just going to flip it over and finish the veneer that I applied. So I just need to give it a quick sand and then stain and wax that mahogany. I'm not entirely happy with how the velvet has come up, so there's a couple of things I'm going to do to hopefully improve the look of it. First of all though, I do need to reconnect these pieces back onto the main box, so I'm just gluing this part down. Once that's dried off, I'll trim it off and then I can move on with the next detail. Now you can see here, this is the part that I'm not very happy with. It's slightly frayed, you can see some glue, and the velvet hasn't quite met the edge of the veneer. So what I'm going to do is use this goldy brass coloured trim to cover this up. It's quite a time consuming little thing to have to do, but basically I'm using super glue and just doing sort of 2 to 3 centimeters at a time and working my way around the edge of the velvet. The corners were certainly very challenging, but after about 10 attempts I finally got it. Remember these little guys from earlier in the video? Well, it's now their time to shine. Now I'll chime in here to thank you very much for watching this video. It's truly appreciated and it keeps me in the YouTube game. If you enjoyed this video enough, please feel free to hit the like button. And if you've got some words for me, please leave it in the comment section below. And if you think you need more of these kind of videos in your life, subscribing to this channel will absolutely help with that. And it also helps me on my YouTube journey, and that's a win-win. Now let's get the reveal underway. Until next time, take it easy.